All right, boys and girls, listen, I'm a one-man show today, so I wasn't able to have, um, you know, the film crew and all that jazz. But I'm trying to change it up for you guys. Why not mix things up? So I've done a review in the past on one of my favorite fragrances of all time from the House of Lalique. This is Lin Su Mi. This is what I classify to be one of the best watery green scents, top three best office, top three best upscale casual for the aromatic outdoor green type of scent profile. And I just think this is incredible juice from the House of Lalique, probably easily in my top three best Lalique fragrances ever made. And this is just a star-studded goat, in my opinion. But we're not talking about that fragrance today. This fragrance, I believe, was released in 2016. And the fragrance we are going to be talking about today is the flank, which is Lalique Lin Su Mi Ma Force. Check that out. So we'll go ahead and lay Lin Su Mi down so you guys don't get confused on what the review is on. I got to kind of remember what I do when I'm sitting at my desk. So let's do an initial impressions real quick. I probably should have had a test strip before we even started the freaking show. So my apologies for me wandering around my studio like a loner. But let's go ahead and do an initial impressions. Again, this fragrance came 2 years after Lin Su Mi, so 2018. And let's see what they brought to the table. We'll do some skin as well. And Lin Su Mi was despite the notes, ignore the notes. It was a very kind of green, sappy, dewy, kind of Dior's Eau Sauvage type of fragrance, but way more modern, way more of a fresh green pine and sap and dew outdoor fragrance. But it had this watery air that ran through it, like a mossy air or a fog, kind of like when you're in San Diego or something, that just kind of breathed through the fragrance and made it brighter and lighter and more modern. Most green type of fragrances are, obviously fougere in nature, or they're just older feeling. Lin Su Mi is a fragrance that, to me, the only thing making it feel old school might be just the profile of just the green sap and the foresty green type of feel. But outside of that, the blend and everything just feels super modern. And I just think it's an incredible daily driver. But green, watery, sappy, dewy scent. Now for me, and it's very aromatic, for me, Lin Su Mi Ma Force is actually takes a different route. There's a vetiver base in Lin Su Mi, and it's a grassy, green, dewy kind of fragrance, whereas Ma Force takes all of that vetiver base out of it, and this seems to be going more in a chilled lemonade type of direction. Chilled citrus on ice. It's so nice. It's very reminiscent, if you like the Dior Sport, the Jimmy Choo either Aqua or Ice, whichever one smells like lemonade. And more importantly, Brioni's Eclat. This reminds me quite a bit of Eclat. But the difference here is this is much more robust, juicy, projective citrus. A lot of times with those lemonade type of scents, they tend to be, despite being citrus fragrances, tend to be a lot more smooth killer, no real sillage, more just kind of small scent, 2-foot scent bubble types of fragrances that smell incredible, but just don't have a lot of lasting power and not a lot of curb appeal because they don't just jump out. Ma Force really jumps out with a roaring level of kind of this orange and lemony citrus. It's a tasteful, sweet candied lemon with some orangish facets and aromatics. Again, the vetiver base is gone, and this is just more of an amber, but there seems to be kind of the similar gust of wind, similar weight as Lin Su Mi, but this is a much more playful take on the DNA, where it's not really going green anymore. It's going citrus, airy, ice water. And so I guess the watery air and the dewy air kind of connects them, but Lin Su Mi appears a lot more formal and old school comparatively to something like this. This smells like, in terms of how the citruses are treated, a lot like just about any of the citrus basket types of fragrances that you would encounter. So it's quite, I guess juvenile might be the word in that way. It's more youthful. But I think for a men's fragrance, and this is probably unisex if I'm not mistaken. Oh, it says for men. I think women could totally rock this. If you can rock Brioni Eclat, you could totally rock this. It's just a slightly ambered up ice water with a basket of citruses leaning in a candied lemon route. On skin, it does the same thing. It's quite projective. It feels at least designer-ish, maybe even a little bit of a bump up. Again, candied lemonade is kind of the feel, but there's a little bit of aromatic facet to it that makes it more interesting than the Eclat, more projective than the Eclat, more interesting than the Dior Sport and all that. Just reading you guys the notes because I couldn't bring my laptop up here. Green apple, citruses, cardamom, lemon, lavender, violet leaf, camphor, C-A-M-P-H-O-R, which is a green note, rosemary. You get a ton of that rosemary and camphor behind that lemon and green apple feel. And this isn't green apple like a lot of your typical designers. Again, think lemonade, slightly candied, slightly fancy. And then with a base of cashmere wood, woody notes, and amber. The fragrance doesn't feel too woody to me. It just kind of has some sort of a backbone. But usual suspects, it says it's a men's fragrance. I think it's quite unisex, to be honest. Ladies, would you like to smell like fancy lemonade? I'm sure you would, with a little bit of, kind of this basil-y, green, rosemary-ish feel. I just feel like rosemary and basil kind of add this sweet green accord to whatever it encounters, and it gives it life, it gives it fun, a funness to it. Just great. I do think this is truly unisex. As far as seasons, I think it's spring, summer, but truly any season, any reason. Don't let this encounter heavy elements like, rain or windiness and stuff like that. I think it would just eat this fragrance alive. But in moderate weather, I think it would be spring, summer leaning in terms of vibe, but you could truly wear it year round because to me, this sits in fancy casual territory. Upscale, maybe you could argue a case for that, or a fun play date, but due to the just citrus juiciness and kind of the candied feel of the citrus and not as much green as the Lin Sumi, I totally take this to be a more fancy, playful type of thing. So that's the vibe, and you could take that vibe anywhere you want to go. I mean, you could go everything from gym scent to errand running. You're going to feel like you're wearing a niche fragrance casually, but it's not so complex that it's out of the world. I think complexity level, it sits kind of in the designer category, but on par with something like a Givenchy or something, where just because it's Givenchy and it's designer, Givenchy still has some great blends, some layering, some complexity, and all of that. But kids, I feel this is absolutely ageless. Like, if you want to take this to school every day, you totally can. You can wear this every day at school, and you will be the man or the woman. Just such a fun fragrance. Candied, fancy lemonade, and there's a gust of air in it, a little bit of greens and herbals in the back, just to give it a little more depth so it's not just so juvenile or just so simple. Because I think without those background aromatics and herbals, now you have probably a copycat fragrance of a lot of what's out there right now when it comes to citrus aquatics, citrus greens, and kind of citrus classy fragrances. So amazing fragrance. You can get this, I believe, for about 40-50 bucks. It's always sold out. In fact, I hadn't even seen it until a year or two ago. But people don't even know that this fragrance exists, let alone Lin Sumi, because Lin Sumi and Ombre Noir from Lalique always sell out so quick. They're kind of just flashes in the pan. So that makes Force even more of a splash in the pan. So if you ever see it, definitely pick it up. But I think for your casual and slightly upscale, fancy casual play date type of scenario, this is a daily driver that you could take a lot of pride in, and it will never really get old. It's just got all the facets and finesse behind a super playful scent that smells expensive. Okay, so guys and girls, any season, any reason, predominantly spring, summer, don't take it too much into the elements. Alternatives to this, I told you some of the stuff that it reminds me of, probably closest to a Brioni Eclat. If you're a fan of that fragrance at all, this is going to have more performance, double the projection, and a little bit more complexity than that, as well as the Dior. You know, it even kind of takes you in the realm of your Tigars and stuff like that. Not the same scent profile, but just that bombastic burst of citrus that just kind of hits you right off the bat. In the air, it just smells incredible. Performance for me on this is truthfully kind of mid. It's like 4 or 5 hour guarantee. You're spraying yourself with this at least 10 times. I mean, this is a fragrance you just bathe in basically, and it'll get you through a work shift or some type of event. But it's not supposed to be. You know, when you're dealing with dominantly citrus fragrances, citruses are typically in the top notes and heart notes. And for that reason, they fade off quickly. So the fact that you get 4 or 5 hours out of this, I'm not complaining at all. That's actually on the upper end for a citrus fragrance. That even might remind you of something like a Dolce & Gabbana Forever, Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue. But I just think this is fancier, prettier, more complex, more interesting of a scent profile. And it's going to be a fragrance that not a lot of people have. I love that they I mean, check out the design work on the bottle, even on the cap. Just really robust. Lalique is known for their glass work, but you can also tell that it's frosted. And I think that that was a perfect choice. Look at it in the light right here. Isn't that cool? You know, it has the frosted glass. And that's perfect because to me, it's like a frosted, you know, fancy, pretty lemonade type of scent profile with a little green complexity in the background. I just think they nailed this. Like, for me, I mean, I'm giving it at least an 8 out of 10, probably a high 8 if I was a decimal guy, as just like a way above average. And I guess you would classify this as a cheapie, you know, 40, 50 bucks for 100 ml. That's a steal, but it is truly kind of a off-beaten path treasure that I don't think I've seen a lot of reviews on, if any, that you guys could totally put into your collection. I'm not really going to speak on alternatives to this because, man, it just, you know, for what it is, it's 10 out of 10 in terms of just like doing everything you need it to do for a daily driver. I don't know of many fragrances that are daily drivers that I would call 10s out of 10s. I don't know. I think a lot of that comes to like my perception of, you know, when we rate fragrances for 10 out of 10, normally it's an occasion-based fragrance, you know, date night or fall winter or gourmand or super complex aromatic fougere or something that's just kind of head scratching that isn't very simple to wear, at least for me. So it's kind of hard for me to rate some of the simpler fragrances 10s, but I know this could be a 10 for a lot of people that are in the designer and below realm that just want something very interesting and unique and just have a fun wearing experience. But for me, in my experience, it would be an 8. If I could get in the decimal realm, I'd push it close to a 9 as I possibly could, because this is just an awesome fragrance that just makes me happy. Anything near water, anything outside, anything fun, anything gym, this is just going to be an incredible daily driver. Okay, I think I've said everything that I need to say. 10-15 sprayer, 40-50 bucks. Look it up online. Like, comment, subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell so you can stay tuned because we're dropping content all the stinking time. I'm going to put a video on my left and right. The algorithm's going to see what you've been searching up as far as fragrance content and show you anything that I have put together recently that might be in line with some of your interests. So I got to go, but feel free to stick around. And again, until next time, this was Lalique's Linsumi Ma Force. And this is a straight up banger. Stay blessed.